my name is Michael Lee. I serve as the lead pastor at All Nations Community Church and also have the privilege of serving as the executive director of the SOLA network.
And hi, I'm Jason Tarn. I'm the lead English pastor over at Houston Chinese Church in Houston, Texas.
Jason, what's been your kind of ministry experience? How many years have you been in Houston, and what were you doing before that?
So for me, I've been at the church I'm at right now, Houston Chinese Church. I've been there since I was a teenager. Age 12, I started going there. And my first job out of college was actually youth ministry at the church. So I was there for a short stint in youth ministry. Then after my seminary studies and pastoring a little, I ended up coming back there as well. So in total, it's been about 17 years serving in this church in two different stints. And currently it's as within the English adult ministry.
Wow.
Yeah. And what about yourself?
That's amazing. 10 years at All Nations. And then before that, 11 years as a college and worship pastor at a church called Good News Chapel.
Oh,
and for all of my ministry career, we have been tethered to a Korean church as well. And so we've existed in like interdependent partnership, but it's really been, right alongside the Korean ministry.
Oh, that's great.
And then
that's great.
Houston as well, like languages, congregations.
Yes, So Houston Chinese Church has three different congregations based on language and cultural context. So we've got Mandarin, Cantonese, and I'm the pastor of the English-speaking one.
That is crazy.
So it's still one church, just three congregations.
Yeah. All the Koreans, we always think, man, it's so hard doing Korean and English.
Yeah.
And then we talk to our Chinese brothers.
Throw in another one,
Dude, you guys take it to the next level. As much as we love our churches and as much as we've been blessed and so privileged to serve in our ministries, what are some of the challenges that you've experienced over the years being three congregations, one church, with a culture, with change, whatever it might be? What are some challenges you faced?
I think for me, growing up in this immigrant church context, it made sense from the youth ministry kind of perspective, especially as we're thinking about the mission and the purpose of English-speaking ministries in an immigrant church. It was clear that when it comes to children and teens, definitely we want to be able to disciple them in their heart language. Like they need to hear the gospel in their mother tongue just as much as their parents do, and that's the reason why we have these immigrant churches, right? And also it needs to be contextualized into their context, which is going to be as second generation immigrants. And so that made sense to have English-speaking ministries in these churches, especially the priority of the family. Like, we don't want the parents to have to drop off their kids at some other English-speaking church, but to be able to worship together, grow together as a family, and encouraging parents to be disciples of their own children. So that made sense to me. It was just the adult English ministry where I was there's a season of just wrestling with that. It's like, is there a clear enough purpose and mission as much as we see it for the children and for the teens? So kind of wrestling with, if I'm going to be an English pastor, like what's that big vision keeping me going and putting in front of the people, especially English adults that may not have, and most of them don't have in my church, any familial connection with anyone on the Chinese side. So it's like, are we just creating a context that is, a cultural enclave, for our people? And obviously, I don't want that to be the vision. Oh, we just want to be comfortable with our own people. So really wrestling with seeing a need for English-speaking ministry, and also feeling there is a need for English adult ministry, but then being able to put theology behind it, a clear theological vision behind that was something in the early years of ministry I was definitely wrestling with. So I don't know if you felt the same way in your Korean immigrant context.
Yeah, because that feeling is like, is this what we're doing? Are we just kind of like keeping the org going? Are we just trying to like keep this model alive for the sake of
Yeah.
keeping it alive,
Yeah.
or is there something more?
Yeah, I mean, and keeping it for the sake of the immigrant family, like I get that. Like, they're going to need help in discipling their own kids, and they need, the second generation adults to be able to help them in contextualizing the gospel for their kids. But beyond that, that's where, when you're dealing with college students, young professionals, families, I was really searching and seeking for a clear vision for why we stick together, why we remain in partnership. Especially unless you're working in children or youth ministry, like what else are you really offering them as a vision for why we're together?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, for us, just over the years, in both churches that, in both ministry contexts, one of the practical things that we run into is like parking and space and rooms. Yeah, and so just as both churches were healthy and growing, we were quickly outgrowing our spaces. And so if you've had any room wars, parking wars, programming wars, scheduling, there's just a lot there. And so many times ministries, they're looking out for themselves, and they care about their youth group, the college group, the senior ministry, whatever it might be, and they want to prioritize that on like key times and key rooms. And so, just navigating that, with the elders, with the senior pastors, whatever it might be. So that's always been kind of a challenge. I think for me as the lead pastor of the English-speaking church at All Nations, the expectations from the Korean church is another one that's been a challenge and a burden. I get it, that they want to see their youth students graduate, go to college, and stay, and they want to see their children get married, stay, and raise their families alongside them. And so if they move away or if they go to a different church, it can be easily seen as like, I'm failing.
Yeah, what'd you do wrong? Oh, why'd you drive them away?
So it's kind of like, hey, if I brought my parents to you, did you, but just knowing that that's expected, that's desired, and then being able to have those conversations and navigate that. And so.
Yeah, so with all those practical challenges of being able to operate two churches on one campus, two growing healthy churches. So what has been the kind of the impetus to, hey, no, we're still going to stay in partnership, in proximity, because you guys are sharing the same campus, right? Yeah. What have been some of those factors that really convinced you guys? Look, because you could have just taken the English church to another location. Right? So what kept you guys together in one campus?
At our previous church, Good News Chapel, we literally had nothing to do, nowhere to go. And our churches weren't in a financial place to sell and do a new building project. And so we did that thing where we found a nearby school and set up shop there, worshipped. We had our teachers go back and forth. It was short-lived though. It was vigorous. We really tried to make it work. And at the end of the day, we did end up kind of becoming a church plant on our own. And so that was one of the attempted solutions. Right now at our church, the KM was really gracious to give us the gym as a worship space. And so we renovated that. And so we're kind of like a mobile church in a mega church. And so, but I think that that's really what it takes. That kind of commitment, adaptability, heart from both ends. Because, hey, our Korean church, they love the gym. They love their gym.
So it's a sacrifice.
And so it was a sacrifice on their end. To really kind of surrender that space during prime time so that we can set up and be able to worship there. And that was huge. And then for us to be able to roll up our sleeves and say, we're good to be a mobile church within this context because we believe in the shared vision of interdependence and making disciples of all generations by the power of the gospel. And so, it really does take both sides to have a shared vision and then to accommodate for each other. And so we're really grateful. We're in talks for a building project, shared building project, so a lot of details need to come together. But we really want to partner together so that we can do this model of interdependence that we're doing.
And in your context, is there one children's and one youth ministry, or are there two ministries that sometimes work together, or how does that usually work?
No. So, I mean, let's talk about church models a little bit, because there's so many different ways to run and govern and set up church. And I think what y'all do and what we do is different. So it's going to be great to kind of share. But for us, we are two fully independent churches, even though the names are the same. So the Korean Church is All Nations Church, and we are All Nations Community Church. But we have our completely own, distinct bylaws, governance, all of that. Membership is separate. But we do share in our youth and children's ministry all the way through. And so that's kind of part of our vision to disciple our generations, our younger generations together. And so, we do that, and we make sure that our services sync up. And it's because there's a lot of Korean churches where the English ministry gets like the 2:00 slot. And that's not the best slot. And so the Korean church's main service is 9:30 and 11:30, and we're 9:30, 11:30 as well. And we fully partner together in teaching our children and our youth, and our teachers serve at one service and attend the other.
Does one church take lead in leading the children's or leading the youth ministry?
Right now it is, the Korean church. And so in terms of an HR staffing, and so, but most, like with the youth group, it's junior and high school. Just about all of the teachers, volunteers, leaders, they come from our English-speaking church. And so we do pay rent. We have a really great deal. We just tithe our annual budget. But considering LA's like rent and real estate, we're really grateful, because with that we get utilities, space, and then
so going back to my conundrum of like the adults, because again, youth, children serving, partnering together, it totally makes sense. What have you found in terms of your context of how the adults, that if they're not serving with the youth, not serving with the kids, what other ways are they able to partner, to bless each other, to serve together, or to serve each other in your context, which really justifies and gives a good vision for why we stick together, besides just children and youth ministries?
I think one thing is important, that All Nations Community Church can't just exist to staff and serve the youth and children. That cannot be our primary existence. We do exist to be a God-glorifying church, to be the body of Christ, that Jesus is called to be on mission, to be a thick and rich family together. And so, serving the youth ministry and education department, that's part of what it means to be All Nations, but it's not all of it. And so, we send out missions teams. We support our own missionaries, community groups, building up and equipping leaders. And so all of that, I think that's, we really want to grow in those areas and allow our church members to be part of a church and not just a department in that sense. So
that's the same thing I've been kind of just trying to wrestle with and come up with a clear, just even reason for myself, to continue persevering. And I resonate with that. Just really wanting to build a healthy church that allows, in my context, the three congregations to be serving each other, not just in children and youth. And so some of the things that I've kind of landed on is, on one hand, is the English congregation I find has an opportunity to really contribute to the theological orthodoxy of the entire immigrant church, because there's a lot of contemporary challenges and issues that we're going to feel first on the English side. And we're engaged with a lot of either literature that's more contemporary, or other ministries. So dealing with a lot of these pressing issues that our kids are going to be facing or are facing. The English side often is kind of more deeper in that conversation than the immigrant side. So we're able to serve each other and to help our fellow leaders and the families to kind of engage on dealing with some issues with our theological orthodoxy. And also I was thinking, when it comes to contributing to the Catholicity of the immigrant church, because if you just left it up to to my counterparts on the Chinese side, most of their connections and partnerships outside of our church are just going to be with other Chinese heritage churches, which is great. I love those relationships. But being able to connect to the larger body of Christ in our city, it kind of falls upon the English congregation to really take lead on that and really building those relationships. For myself, finding networks outside of just the Chinese heritage church networks that were already in place. And then I think another factor is really helping and contributing to the church's mandate to be a local church that has an impact on its locale. Because in our church is located more in an urban setting, closer to the city center, and so you've got, in terms of some of the local schools around us that are struggling. You've got even close by some of the major high freeway intersections. We have a lot of homeless, and some of these ministries serving the needy, serving the poor. It's the English congregation that typically has the initial heart to want to reach out and has the language ability to minister, because a lot of these either individuals or families that we're serving aren't of of Chinese descent, and so it's really the English congregation building those connections and then bringing our Chinese brothers and sisters along and to come serve. But it's really helping kind of have a more local impact. Otherwise, it's going to be very zeroed in on the Chinese community, the diaspora community, which is great, but then actually around the church. The diaspora community is not literally living around the church. It's in other parts of Houston. So I think those are some of the factors of that beyond just children and youth, there are other responsibilities upon a local church that the English congregation can help in either initiating and pushing for and inviting the Chinese counterparts to come in and serve together. So for those reasons, I feel like, there's so many other factors for why we're better together than to just, go our own ways. Even though I'm sure, in both our contexts, the English-speaking congregations or the church is at a stage where we could just go our own way. But I don't know, I just feel like there are ways to really be able to bless each other that again, go beyond just we're here to help you with your kids.
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's a phrase that we use very often, better together. And so, for you, it sounds like, the more I talk to you, Jason, you are connecting with a lot of other pastors. I love your heart for mentoring and raising up other young leaders and whatnot. What practical advice would you give to church leaders struggling with the immigrant church? And because it's one thing for us to say like, oh yeah, we're really grateful. It's been a grace-filled journey, but we also have so many friends and in ministry who it's been a lot of pain. And so, what's maybe one thing that you would share?
I mean, if I'm talking to another English pastor or someone that's on staff and providing leadership in the English ministry, whether they're a pastor or not, I would always encourage them to really invest in their relationships with their immigrant side counterpart, assuming that it's not the relationship with that individual that's causing the stress, and if that's the case, then that's another conversation. But if there is an ability to have a harmonious relationship with that, whether it's the Chinese pastor or the Korean pastor, I'd say invest heavily in that relationship, just for your own, just being able to serve together, work together. But I've learned so much about the Chinese immigrant mindset and culture from the lead Chinese pastor in my church, and it's been so helpful for me, because even though I grew up with Chinese immigrant parents, but I didn't grow up in a Christian environment. So my parents didn't take me to church. I went to church just being invited by friends. So there's a whole like the Chinese Christian immigrant mindset, and especially how they view the church and how they handle decisions. And I mean, that's something that it was a new world to me. So I learned a lot, and it helped to really temper my expectations and to kind of shape my approach in serving together. So I'd say invest heavily.
Yeah.
Now,
how's your language?
Oh, yeah.
Like how do you guys communicate?
Yeah.
How's his English? How's your
So
Mandarin
my
or
Mandarin
Cantonese?
is like grade school level. So, so I couldn't communicate well if it had to be. So that's another factor too.
Yeah.
Like fortunately, I've had Chinese pastors that I serve with whose English is proficient enough for us to really develop a relationship. And so my communication with them is in English, and I'm so grateful that they're willing to speak to me in a second language. And they're willing to make that adjustment for me. But so that's.
Can I ask one more follow-up?
Yeah.
Have you seen it work when the relationship isn't good?
Yeah. So
have you seen it last?
If it's the actual like Chinese pastor, the senior pastor that you've got, that is where, that's actually one of the factors where I would say, look, I mean, who knows? In terms of every situation is different, but that is one of the bigger factors. If the tension is there, that is a little bit more challenging, definitely. And I think there is a lot of more humility to recognize, like, especially if this is an immigrant church, and if that pastor, definitely, especially if it's the senior pastor, that's usually where I would say, as the English guy, especially if you're in a more an associate, I think there's a lot of deference there, where like if you can't, in good conscience, continue to defer to his leadership, even though it might be different than yours, then it might be a sign that maybe God is calling you to another context. But I would say that if the relationship is either already solid or has the potential to be, I would urge that brother to just continue to deepen that, because a lot of the challenge you're facing is because of just a lack of awareness of how to really understand and work well with the immigrant side. And that pastor is really there to help kind of inform you and guide you through that, which has been my experience.
100% my experience as well, just serving in just really good relationship context with the Korean senior pastors. That's been everything, to advocate for them when our church members have questions, and then they advocate for us and give just protection, support, to cast each other in the best light. One other thing, practically, I think every pastor needs to be self-aware. And I think God's wired us all differently. Some guys are wired to be church planners. Some guys are wired to lead independent Asian American churches. And other guys are wired to do this kind of partnership, interdependent type of ministry together. And I think when we're out of our space, out of our wiring, out of our, there's just going to be a lot boiling like in us, like a lot of discontent, a lot of frustration. Like you were saying, you're wrestling with, what is the vision going to be? What's going to be compelling to me? And give me a reason to really invest my life and my ministry here at Houston. And so if somebody's a planter at heart, you will not be happy doing the 3-church model or 3-ministry model or interdependent model, whatever, because you're going to want to do your own thing and just build it up from the ground up. And so that would be a big encouragement that I give to anyone in this ministry context like ours, just to really like assess yourself and know what your wiring is, really what it is. And I think just putting ourselves in that type of ministry context is really important, or just being aware of that.
Another piece of advice I would give is just to really humble yourself and recognizing that, from my experience, I'm often, I found myself in these, whether it's a staff meeting or a leadership team meeting, where you're there with the immigrant side leaders or other staff. And I feel like often, especially if we're conducting this in English,
for myself and other English leaders, we're able to really carry the conversation, and we could out-argue them.
Yeah.
We could be able to win a debate. We can win a disagreement with our logic, because we have the advantage of operating in our own mother tongue.
Right.
And I think that's just where, just appreciating the fact that, look, if we were speaking all in Chinese, they would probably be able to, argue circles around me.
Yeah.
But they're actually making a huge sacrifice trying to hold these meetings and go, work through these decisions and potential disagreements in a secondary tongue. For my sake, as one of the English site leaders, I've got to be more humble about that and appreciative about it, and realize that just because, I might be able to, argue them into silence because they just don't have any ability to refute the logic that I just laid out. It doesn't mean that they agree. Often they might go silent because they don't want to continue to go back and forth because they realize their limitations.
Right.
Speaking a second tongue, and so I might feel like, oh, I guess you guys agree because you're not refuting what I said, and I guess we're all good. And I realized, no, that is not at all the case.
You just bulldoze them.
I just bulldoze them, and they stay silent, not because they're convinced. It's because they realize, hey, this is not fruitful, and so there are so many of those kinds of experiences that really taught me, like, hey, I have to humble myself and realize that, again, if we were speaking all in Chinese, they're going to be the ones sounding eloquent and coherent. I'm going to be the one struggling, sounding like a third grader. And that's where I just have to just remind myself, man, thank you. Talking to those other, those Chinese side leaders for being in this context and willing to speak to me and giving me a seat at the table, because if it wasn't in English, I wouldn't even be able to really have a seat at the table. So again, those type of things. Again, if someone's struggling with that, I would at least want them to see that there are evidences of kindness and grace coming from maybe the very people that they're frustrated with across the table, but just realize, do you see the extent that they're sacrificing for you? Just at least acknowledge that, and hopefully that will humble and temper your attitude in those type of settings. So
That's
my own experience.
It just makes me realize like how much we really need the fruit of the Spirit in our leadership conversations in our meetings. And I think a lot of times we go into meetings and we get strategic. We want to prep. We get all like analytical, like, and we just forget patience, kindness, humility. Just the importance of the Spirit, at work. And I really think as leaders in those kind of like high octane meeting contents, that's when we need to be like Christ the most, the most. And so. I think that's pretty much our time. But Jason, thanks for sharing your story. It's good to hear other brothers in ministry who aren't griping and complaining, but are able to, like, with genuine joy, just say, we're grateful. And I heard a lot of gratitude, from you. And so thanks for sharing, brother.
Michael, appreciate it.
All right.